So it looks like you filed for a civil protection order and against the respondent Patrick Chapman. And is anybody here for Patrick Chapman, either in person or on the line on Zoom? Okay, didn't think so because it doesn't look like you've been able to get service.
No, I haven't. I even had somebody try to serve him that I knew, and he still went out to the door. And he's going to be moving here in the next few days, supposedly, and I ain't going to have a new address for him.
Okay.
So can I just go ahead and I guess just because without him coming, I can't do it, right?
Right, exactly. What I can do is I can continue the temporary order for 2 more weeks to allow
I'd have to come back in 2 more weeks.
You'd have to come back in 2 more weeks. So it's your choice.
Yeah.
If you'd like to just voluntarily dismiss it now and try again once you have a new address and once you evaluate.
Go ahead and do that.
Okay, so based on your decision, we'll voluntarily dismiss the temporary order right now. You don't have to serve anybody right now. And then if the situation changes and you feel like you do need one again, you just go ahead and do the same process and file it again. Yeah, please have a seat wherever you'd like. And this case is for petitioner Carmen Matias Pedro.
Este es el caso para Carmen Matías Pedro.
And Miss Pedro, are you here?
Señora Pedro, ¿está presente?
Sí, aquí estoy.
Yes, here I am.
All right, good morning, thank you.
Buenos
So
días, gracias.
this case has been called several times.
Se ha llamado este caso varias veces.
At the last hearing, Commissioner Wool had said this would be the final hearing this morning unless there was service. And I don't see anything in the file showing that you've been able to get service.
Y no veo aquí en el expediente nada de que indique que se le entregaron los papeles que usted hizo servicio.
Is that correct?
¿Es correcto eso?
Lo que pasa es que no supe si sí le sirvieron los papeles o no,
Yeah.
pero
What
yo entregué, bueno, el sheriff le iba a entregar los papeles al señor.
Yeah, I don't know whether they were able to deliver the papers to him. I don't know. I have no notice or anything that will indicate that they gave it to him.
Okay, thank you. And we have had no indication that services process has been able to be performed
A esa persona.
because
disculpe.
there's been several chances to get service. My decision today is going to be to dismiss the request for protection order.
Mi decisión hoy es de que se va a desestimar la petición de orden de protección,
But this doesn't change your legal rights.
pero no cambia sus derechos legales.
If you have any future issues with the respondent, you are always free to request another temporary order, and that would restart the process.
Y también va a seguir el proceso.
Do you have any questions for me?
¿Tiene alguna pregunta para mí?
Papeles. Y pues yo sí
What happened is
quisiera.
that every time the police goes to his house to search the papers, he's there. My children and I are very afraid of him because he's behaving like he's yelling, he's singing and making a lot of racket. And we have no idea why he refuses to open the door when the police goes to deliver the papers to him.
I understand. Unfortunately, there's no requirement under Washington law that a person has to open their door in order to be served. So if there is another active threat against you, please call the police, call 911.
Y si hay una nueva amenaza contra usted, asegúrese de llamar a la policía, llame al 911.
And if you would like to request another temporary restraining order in the future, you are welcome to do so. But for today, we're going to dismiss this for lack of service and process.
Pero en esta ocasión vamos a desestimar la petición por falta de que no se le pudo entregar los documentos a la otra parte.
And I'll enter an order to that effect, and the
Los,
clerk will post
demandados
it
son,
on the website.
Shiflet y la señora Shiflet.
And it looks like we have a respondent Shiflets here on video, and I see we have a respondent Salvador Almanza here. Is Mr. Paula also on that same video?
Sí.
Leo, okay.
Okay, thank you. I see you both now on video. We're going to proceed with the hearing on this request for a restraining order.
Vamos a proceder con la audiencia de que es la petición de una orden de restricción.
So when requesting a protection order, the parties will be sworn under oath. I will hear testimony from both sides.
Voy a escuchar testimonios de ambas partes.
You will not be allowed to interrupt each other. And just for the record, there is a conflict of interest in this case. My understanding is that one of the respondents works for the court. I'm a pro tem judge. I work at the Court of Appeals in Tacoma. I have no relationship, personal or professional, with either of the respondents. So there's no conflict of interest for me to hear this request. And I apologize, Madam Interpreter, if that was too long. Thank you. So we'll start with hearing from Mr. Almanza and Mr. Paula. The request for a restraining order was basically based on 3 different events. There was a threat made allegedly against the dogs that are owned by the petitioners. There was an incident that resulted in a shove or an assault, and there was an incident of stalking type behavior where
That's too long, Your Honor.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's why I needed to interrupt first incident.
Yes.
Yes, okay. And then there was
an assault.
Thank you. Yes, there was a second incident of an assault, and then there was a third allegation of stalking behavior. It was videotape taking place over a fence. Mr. Paula, if you could briefly recap for me those allegations.
Yes, Your Honor. And for the record, all we wanted, me and Salvador, is for them to leave us alone. We lived here in our property for more than 3 years, and we never experienced any of this before. We lived in this house for more than 3 years, and we never have any problem with anybody. Our landlord came over the last Saturday, inspected the house, and renewed the lease with us, and he had never had any problem with our dogs, neither anything in the house. And he saw the 3 dogs, our 3 dogs, and he's aware of it.
And let me interrupt you there.
Lo voy a interrumpir.
I don't really need to hear about the allegations of the dog's behavior. I understand that there was a conflict between the neighbors, allegedly caused by the dogs. But my focus is on the conduct that led to the request for the restraining order. So can you tell me about the first allegation involving the threat against the dogs?
Yes, Your Honor. On May 14, 2023, that was my husband Salvador's birthday, and I just lost someone in my family. When Justin Shiflett came over to our backyard and made a verbal threat that he will kill our dogs.
And what exactly did he say?
¿Qué dijo exactamente?
He said he will kill our dogs to protect his family, his kids.
And were there any others at that time?
I'm sorry.
I'm
Your
sorry?
Honor.
Were there any other threats made at that time?
He just threatened to kill our dogs.
And were any weapons brandished at that time?
He's-
I didn't see what he was holding in his hand because he had his hand in his pocket. But his body language and his tone was very aggressive towards us.
Okay, and can you tell me about the second allegation where there was an alleged shoving?
Well, the second allegation happened on July 22. That was on a Saturday afternoon. I was on my way to work. Salvador asked me to go start the car because it was a hot day and start the AC for our 3 dogs. They always take me to work. As soon as I started the car, I saw Salvador getting out of the house, and I immediately got out of the car to open the door for him so he can load up the dogs. The dogs were on the leash, the 3 of them. Salvador immediately loaded up the dogs in the back seat, and that's when I noticed that Brooke, the lady who I never seen before, started recording me. When I asked her what she was doing, she said she was recording me because she was attacked by my dogs. I asked her how and why, since she was standing far from me and then my dog was already in the car. She said that she was followed by my dog across the street, and then she couldn't tell me when and how, and she has no proof for it. Then Brooke started threatening me that she's going to call our landlord to get us evicted out of here because of our dogs. Our dogs are already in the car before this even conversation happened between the 2 of us. Brooke continued to be verbally aggressive towards me and then continued to approach me, getting closer to where I was standing right next to my car. At this time, her husband came out of the car and started walking aggressively towards me. When I felt so threatened because I knew he was going for me, and I got this all in recording in my video. So Salvador, because I know that Salvador knew that he was going after me, and then Salvador got in the middle to protect me. So Salvador got in the middle, and then he came over to attack me, and that's when he pushed Salvador on the chest. This altercation is clearly captured in my video, and you can see, I can present it to you to show all this evidence. And I even stated on the video that he just assaulted my husband, that he needs to walk away.
And Mr. Salvador, can you confirm that you were shoved at this incident?
Señor.
Sí,
Yes.
Thank you. And now if you could describe to me the third allegation regarding the videotaping over the fence.
So when you granted us the that day that you granted the what's it called, the temporary restriction order, when we came home, and this is witnessed by our friend we had over here. Our
Just
friend
pause right
actually,
there for a
so
second.
our friend, I was in the kitchen when my friend told me that there was a lady standing behind the fence, and he said he thought that was our neighbor. He confirmed that it was Brooke. Brooke was videotaping our dog. Okay, so then my friend told me that he said that it's pretty sure that was our neighbor holding a phone over the fence and then videotaping us in our property. So then I came out just to confirm, because there were three of us, me, Salvador, and my friend. So we came there, and then I confirmed to my friend that was Brooke. So when I saw Brooke, I saw his face clearly. He had a smile in her face, and then raising up her phone and videotaping us. So then I told her, Brooke, I said, that's what you call stalking. I verbally told her that's stalking, and then she went away.
So have there been any new events since these three allegations took place?
So when our friend came over here to serve them the notice, our friend is a transgender person. So I asked her to go over to their house and serve them the notice. As she was walking over to their house, I had a video recording over it. I had to videotape it because I know that they have the history of making story up. So I have to make sure that I have an evidence for it. My friend just basically knocked on their door, told them that they've been served the notice.
El aviso.
So then I even heard Brooke's voice over the intercom, because they have a ring or something on the doorbell. So then my friend said, okay, I'm just gonna leave it here on your porch, on your door, at your door. So my friend walked away after that. I showed this video to the police. So then my friend walked into my house, and we were having dinner when the three police officers knocked on our door, and then said that the police officer said that they responded to a distress call by Brooke that said that my friend harmed their property or their house or their kids. Then the police told me that it was not a proper way of serving, because that was the complaint of the other party, that it was not a proper way of serving the notice. My friend then told the police that she works at the prosecutor's office in Seattle, and that's not what they tell people. My conversation with the police officer as we were talking at the door also recorded here in my phone. Then I showed the police officer the email I got from the district court on how to serve the notice to the neighbor. It says on the email that I can have anybody who is above 18 years old who is not involved in the case that can serve the notice to them.
You there?
Déjeme interrumpirlo un momento.
My question was if there have been any new threats or harassment. I understand you're telling me about this conflict about the service, but my question is, was there any new threats or harassment that made you in fear?
Well, in my perspective, that's a new threat from them, because they called the cops on us, interrupted us with our dinner, and made up story that we threatened their whatever by serving them notice. So what the cops did, they served the notice to them. So Salvador I was at work. I don't know, maybe Salvador could tell you this, but I had a call from Salvador. He was very frantic on the phone. Actually, he sent because we have a camera in front of our house, and he sent a clip of this one, and he sent it to my phone. I remember clearly reading the restriction order that they cannot directly or indirectly contact anybody or have anybody to interfere with us or contact us. And during that day, according to Salvador, there were a couple of individuals with kids with them walked repeatedly in front of our house on the sidewalk and staring him down. Salvador felt really threatened because he knows that these individuals were somehow involved with the other parties. And I have it all saved in my text, and Salvador was texting me, and he sent me the video of these individuals.
Can you tell me how this series of conduct made you feel?
miedo, pues, porque Parece que siguen hostigando con una tercera persona ahora.
Yeah, well, I felt very uncomfortable. I felt extremely threatened. Of course, you know, they are intimidating through a third party, the way they did it.
And can you both tell me how the entire course of conduct made you feel, not just this last allegation?
Honestly, Your Honor, it has caused me a huge emotional distress. I have nobody else here in America. All my folks are back in the Philippines. They're all very worried. And the fact that I had Salvador to stop working and he's not having any income right now to make sure our dogs are safe and to be taken care of, that cost us a lot of money for him to stop working. And also,
how did all this make you feel?
¿Cómo
feel
le hace
horrible.
sentir esto a usted? Me siento terrible.
And it's just unsafe, uncomfortable, and
My
helpless.
question is to Mr. Almanza.
Mi pregunta va al señor Almanzo.
How did all of these allegations make you feel?
Pues aterrorizado y
Terrorized.
muy incómodo de estar aquí o de vivir aquí.
I'm feeling very uncomfortable and, in fact, terrorized of living here.
Okay, thank you.
Gracias.
We are short on time,
Tenemos poco tiempo.
and I need to hear from the respondents.
Necesito escuchar a los acusados, a los
So
demandados.
are there any other important points that you need to testify about?
The order indicates that they cannot be close to less than 1,000 feet, right?
The order regarding the 1,000 feet does not apply to them being in their property.
Yeah, but the thing is that they park their car right close to our front property.
Yes, I understand. Unfortunately, with neighbors, that is the way it goes.
Como, como esperando algo de acá para allá.
So every time they get there, they don't get off the car right away. It's almost like they are waiting for the dogs to do something.
I understand.
Entiendo.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Now I'd like to hear from the respondents.
Our concerns over our neighbors' dogs have led to a series of unfortunate events. This has led me to feel fearful to leaving my home with my children, as well as my dog. It began in the beginning of this year when they got a dog that used to attack our deck and our fence. Then, after a couple short weeks, they received another dog. This was a puppy that could fit under our deck and bark up at my children and my dog.
Bajo de la fensa.
And let me interrupt you, Ms. Shiplet.
Déjeme interrumpirle, señora.
I'm sorry, but we're low on time.
Estamos muy cortos de tiempo.
I'd like you to focus your comments on the specific allegations, starting with the threat to kill the pets.
I do feel like this context is important that leads up to our next very frightening moment for me.
Siento,
I understand.
entiendo.
So they built a barrier which protected them from reaching our gate and our deck. They built a gate, which was great. We were grateful for because they could no longer attack our deck and our fence. When I was going to pick up my daughter from the bus, I saw Mr. Almanza in his front yard with his two pit
Uno de
bulls.
los perros.
And this was shortly after they built the barrier protecting my fence and deck from their dogs. These dogs began to chase me across the street. And since it was just Mr. Almanza, he grabbed the larger dog of the two. The dog in the camera came across the street and began jumping on me as I held my infant son over my head while he put the other dog inside. This dog was out front with nobody.
Que no lo alcanzara.
And I'm going to interrupt you again.
Le voy a interrumpir nuevamente.
The court is well aware of the reasons for this conflict.
La Corte está muy bien enterada del motivo que causó este enfrentamiento.
Our concern here today is these three allegations that could lead to a serious restraining order or protection. There's an allegation that Mr. Shiflett threatened to kill their dog. Is that allegation true?
¿Es eso verdad?
I would just like to finish my sentence, then I will pass it to my husband.
Me gustaría que
Go ahead.
proceda.
I looked Mr. Almanza in the eyes and I said, that was extremely frightening for me. If you could please leash your dogs. He looked at me and said, I understand. It's just a puppy. I went on with my way, and then this led us to May 14th. Here, it's true. These are my feelings. You're under oath anyways.
And Mr. Shiflett?
Okay.
Yes, so based upon these events, and again, that's why they're important for the context of what happened on May 14th. On that day, I was working in my backyard with my daughter and my dog. Their dogs began charging my fence. My fence was flexing 3 feet, going like this. I heard Mr. Paye and Mr. Almanza in the backyard, and they were doing nothing to recall their dogs. At that time, I walked over to address the situation. To my surprise, when I got there, I saw they now had a third dog with them. I said to them that we needed to have a conversation regarding the dogs. They shrugged me off and said, our dogs are nice.
So I'm not hearing you deny the allegation that you threatened to kill their
Oh,
dogs.
no,
De
I'm
manera
denying.
de que yo no le escucho a usted negar de que usted amenazó a matar a los perros.
My exact words, after being dismissed several times when trying to share my concerns, I informed them if their dogs broke through the fence and came onto my property, that I would defend my family and kill their dogs to protect my family.
And did you also shove Mr. Almanza at a second incident?
I did not, but I need, Your Honor. And then Mr. Paye responded with, if your kids come onto my property, I will kill them.
Thank you, I understand.
Gracias, entiendo.
Did you also shove Mr. Almanza at a second incident?
En el
I
segundo
did not.
incidente, usted empujó al señor Almanza. No, no lo hice.
I did not, but someone pushed my wife from behind at that incident.
I would like to speak about that.
Please continue.
Por favor, continúe.
As seen in Exhibit 1 and 2 was our initial conflict with the neighbors where my husband, as seen in Exhibit 1 and 2 of us trying to load our dog, we just stopped home. Their dogs were off a leash. So after getting my daughter back in the car and my husband got our dog closer to this or to our home for safety, I began recording. I explained why I was recording. And from there, I entered my home as seen in Exhibit as well. As I exited my home to load the trunk of the car, I believe is Exhibit 3, they were waiting for me, and Mr. Paye began verbally assaulting me over and over again. From here, my husband eventually had to step out and ask them to stop verbally assaulting me. They began antagonizing my husband by calling him names. I was at my trunk as my husband started to walk up. When he reached the trunk of our car, I began backpedaling with him. At this point, Almanza was on the sidewalk and Mr. Paye was by his car. As I was backpedaling, I was telling my husband, it's okay, let's not worry about this. And as we got closer, one of them pushed me into my husband's chest. I pursued to look at my husband with a stern look and tell him it is time to go. When I turned around, Almanza was down in front of his vehicle as well as Paye. And this is when we reached our vehicle. And once we took off, I told my husband, one of them pushed me. So not only now am I frightened of their dogs, I am frightened of them because they verbally and physically assaulted me over me not feeling safe to get my daughter off and on the bus or leave my home because they still do not leash their dogs to this day.
So let me interrupt again.
Déjeme interrumpirla nuevamente.
We're very short on time and I have to issue a ruling soon. The Shiflett's allegations about harassment against them are not before the court at this time.
No sé.
I simply need to decide whether the allegations made by the petitioners should result in a protection order.
Yes.
If the Shifletts wish to request a protection order, they would have to do that separate from this proceeding.
Tiene-
And Ms. Shiflett, can you address the allegation that you were recording with your phone over their fence?
It is Exhibit 6. I submitted my video. Never once did my phone go over the fence or into their backyard. I was simply recording how their dogs were stalking my daughter playing outside.
Thank you. Mr. Paye,
Your Honor, we were advised by law enforcement and attorneys that due to our concerns over the dogs, that we had legitimate and lawful reasons to be recording them in these instances. These were not,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Las acciones de esta persona.
Thank you, Mr. Paye.
Gracias,
Voicing
señor
our
Paye.
concerns.
Your allegation was that the videotaping was over the fence. Was it through the fence or over the fence?
It was through the fence.
Era por sobre, por a través de la fensa.
Okay, thank you. I understand.
Ok, entiendo, gracias.
And there were allegations about the service of process in this case. No motion to dismiss on that basis was ever made.
Pero no se pidió de que se desestimara en ese caso, en base de lo que sucedió.
Therefore, I'm going to find that any challenge to the service of process is waived. The parties have all been informed of the allegations,
Yes.
and the respondents have received proper notice and have appeared freely. At this point, I'm going to find that there was a threat made to kill the dogs, but I'm going to find that there's not sufficient proof that there was an assault, and their videotaping that was done was not over the fence, and therefore there was only one incident here that does not constitute a course of conduct. So I'm not going to enter a restraining order at this time, but these neighbors need to leave each other alone. Respondents, the Shiflets, if they feel that they have a legal right, they can take alternate measures to protect themselves from any nuisance, harassment, or harm from the dog. There is no good to be done from confronting each other, and it would be best if you would all just leave each other alone. I am not entering a legal restraining order, but I would strongly advise the Shiflets to not engage in any stalking behavior. Rather, pursue any claims you might have against your neighbor the way the city regulations allow.
Y
I apologize to the Madam Interpreter
disculpas a la intérprete
that we could not get this hearing done sooner.
que no pudimos terminar esta audiencia más
Parties
pronto.
here. I thank you all for your patience. I will sign an order to that effect.
Yep. I'm
Okay,
Corey.
I have Mr. Wimmer on video. Is Mr. Harnish here?
Yes, sir.
All right, I've got Mr. Harnish here as well. You've both been sworn in. And first I can hear from the petitioner, Mr. Harnish, when you're ready.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I have filed this petition just from repeated threats and just like texting me 44 times in 4 hours. This is all work related. This is to a work phone. I listed all of the texts that were sent to me. All of these texts were not responded to, not a single one. I filed a petition in June when this originally happened. I was on vacation and I messed up the time because I was in a different time zone. So I apologize to the court for wasting their time. I got back, I had blocked his number on my work phone, hadn't heard from him, so I was just gonna let it ride. Then when I powered on my work phone to go back to work after being on vacation, I saw that he had on the 22nd sent 4 more voicemails and 47 texts / voice texts, continuing his behavior, this time kind of escalating, making threats that he knows my home address because it was on the paperwork, which I didn't at the time think that was a big deal, but apparently he's going to use that. And then also just in the very next text after he sent that, he sent a voice text saying he's going to obtain a concealed weapons permit and laughing. And then he also repeatedly says, "You'll never know when I'll come through." And then he also makes references to being affiliated with the Crips, which I find that hard to believe, but okay. He's got some allegations that he's trying to use to extort our organization into giving him his job back, giving him a higher pay rate, giving him my job. It's pretty unhinged, to be fair. These voicemails are coming in at 6:19 in the morning. He's obviously intoxicated. And I would just like there to be an order that stops him from contacting me or my organization, or coming to my place of employment. There's zero reason for him to contact me or come to my place of employment. And he's also kind of involved a bunch of other people in my organization with his rants and accusations, just really inappropriate stuff, homophobic remarks, transphobic remarks, saying that he's going to have sex with my ex-wife in front of me, like just really inappropriate things. That's where I'm at with it. I'm just asking the court to have an order in to stop him from contacting me, and that's pretty much it.
And I see there's been several obscene, inappropriate communications to you. Can you tell me how they made you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I have to document and like transcribe all of the information. So it made me feel like I'm not being able to do the work I'm supposed to be doing, which is helping homeless folks. Just taking large chunks of my time, having to discuss this with my HR. And this is all on work and email, like work phones and emails. So it's all seen from my management. So I'm kind of obliged via organization to take time out of my day that is being paid from a nonprofit organization to deal with these. So annoyed, making a gun threat and saying he knows where I live. I mean, great, I'll respond to that if that happens. But again, that just adds another layer to it.
Okay, was that all you had?
Yeah, and I mean, if there's any dispute of any of these voice messages sent, I have them all right here. I'd be more than happy to play them to the court, but I'm hoping it won't come to that. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Harnish. Mr. Wimmer, you can proceed when you're ready.
Well, Mr. Harnish is making some pretty serious allegations right now, and I don't really agree with it. And these dates of 6/16 through 6/26 of my correspondence that he put in the protection order should have been put in the protection order on the last one that got dismissed. And why they are being put in this one, I have no idea, which has no irrelevance to this case at all, because he is talking about why I got fired and all that stuff. And what he is talking about, me saying I'm going to have sex with his wife, is untrue. And also, he is committing perjury in court documents. I don't know if you have realized that. And it's not right.
All right, and you've clearly made a number of communications to him. However, you admit that.
I have made communications with him, but I have not threatened him. No. And as far as the homophobic stuff he is saying, I don't do that. I don't agree with that type of stuff, or I would have never applied with Interfaith. And as far as me extorting their organization, no, that is untrue also, because I already have another job. I am making $5 more than what I was making with Interfaith. And I am working for a
Thank you,
better
Mr. Wimmer. I understand. Thank you. So at this point, I'm going to deny the request. I will find that there has been repeated contacts made by Mr. Wimmer to Mr. Harnish. And I do find that some of these could cause a reasonable person to be intimidated, frightened, or threatened. But I don't find that these communications have actually caused those feelings. There is no lawful or legitimate purpose for these communications. And Mr. Wimmer should know that these communications could cause someone to feel reasonably intimidated or threatened. I just don't see it here at this point in time. So I'm going to deny the request, but I would caution Mr. Wimmer to just leave Mr. Harnish alone. There's no legitimate purpose for these communications, and you're really on the borderline of being in trouble legally as a result of these types of communications. So I would suggest that you just stop. If they continue, Mr. Harnish, and if they cause you to feel actually threatened and fearful, then you can request another one. I'll make a finding that you do have a basis for pursuing another one if these types of communications continue and they actually cause you harm. So I'm not going to hold it against you if you request another restraining order in the future based on these communications. All right.
I do have a question, though.
For now, just leave each other alone. Mr. Wimmer, yes?
I do have a question. Since he is committing perjury in both of these court documents, what can I do about this?
I'm sorry, sir. I'm not your lawyer. I can't advise you on that. I'm not making any findings as to any perjury right now. I would just strongly suggest you leave each other alone.
Okay. Will do.
That's fine, Your Honor. Thank you.
From Ms. Burnside's on the phone.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've seen and heard Ms. Clark affirm. So you're both sworn in, and we can hear first from Ms. Clark. Ms. Clark, I've reviewed the extensive documents that you've filed and your request for the protection order, but I'd like to hear from you and hear your side of the story.
Yes, Your Honor. So I filed this protection order because I have felt that Ms. Burnside's actions have started to escalate. And I'm not really necessarily feeling comfortable in my own home or able to have my kids just go outside. Ms. Burnside's, it's come to my
I'm sorry, let me
awareness
interrupt you for just a moment, Ms. Clark. Ms. Burnsides, can you hear Ms. Clark okay?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all communicating. Thank you. And Ms. Clark, you can
Thank you so
continue.
much.
Okay. So Ms. Burnsides is a stranger to me. She is not a friend of mine or has never been invited or welcome in my home, is not any friend of a family. But it was come to light that she is a mutual acquaintance of a friend. So to be honest, I'm not really certain why this this action towards me and harassment has started and continued. Your Honor, did you want me to go through kind of dates of the different incidences, or?
I think there's so many here that would take too much time. If you
Okay.
could give me a description of the 3 most serious events that you wanted to note to the court.
Okay. Yes. So I should say, excuse me, hold on. One that is a sort of alleged, I'm not certain, was the incident on May 9th when in the middle of the night, someone fitting Miss Burnside's stature walked into my front yard with a 5-gallon bottle of automotive coolant and stepped into my flower bed and poured that into the flower bed area. This person was dressed in all black with a hood over their head and a mask on their face. But I did catch on. So again, I saw this because I caught it on my doorbell camera. And with her preceded attempts coming to my front door, the reason I believe this is one and the same person is the mannerisms, the gait and shoes that Miss Burnside has worn matched what the person that was pulling coolant into my flower bed did that evening on May 9th. Then on May 30th at 11:46 p.m., I had called 911 because Miss Burnside came to my home, parked in my driveway, got in and out of her car 3 times to knock loudly on my door and ring the doorbell. My neighbors have all been, by this time, because it has been ongoing since March, my neighbors had recorded her also coming to my door and banging on it loudly. And I think I provided that as well in the evidence. And at that point, it was just me and my daughter's at home. Again, I don't know why she was here or what the purpose was. And I'm, I've come to feel that I'm uncertain of what her behavior is going to bring at my home.
Continue this 3rd incident that's troubled you?
Yes. So the 3rd incident was probably the most recent, where this was on July 25th, where this was in the morning, 9:14 a.m. She came and knocked on my door, rang the doorbell, probably stood there for less than a minute, maybe a minute, walked away. Then she came back about 40 minutes later, did the same thing. I finally sort of had the courage to answer her through my doorbell system that she's not welcome here. And I've again called the police. Miss Burnside's responded that she didn't think I was home. And why were the police on their way? And then swore at me and walked away.
And Ms. Clark, can you tell me how all of this various incidents have made you feel?
Yes, Your Honor. Due to all these incidents, I'm a single mom and I have 2 children, and I have felt very uncertain, very unsure, very anxious, not comfortable even really going outside in my neighborhood at different times of the day. Uncertain because she's driven behind the road behind my house, honking the horn. If I should be in my backyard, I just don't want her to see me. I don't feel like this has let me rephrase. I feel like this has caused me much anxiety to leave my home, in fear of that I will run into her in some way, whether it's even her or see her car, and then feel that I need to, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to protect myself, protect my property, protect my children, protect other friends that come over to visit or family? I feel it's also potentially impacted my relationship with my neighbors. I don't want to feel ostracized in my place of living. There's schools.
I certainly understand that, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we've got other cases on the docket today, so I have to try to keep things moving along. I'm not trying to be rude. But I understand you've answered my question, certainly.
Okay.
And then one last question for you is, since you didn't have a previous relationship with the respondent, how did you identify her as the person that's been doing these things in your neighborhood and specifically targeting your house?
So that was actually my neighbor, Mrs. Mank, Martha Mank. She provided a statement, a witness statement. And she was the one that actually approached me when I was outside one day and asked me if I knew who this person was, because she had found out through I'm not sure if it was an acquaintance of hers or whatnot, that this was Miss Burnside's. And did I know her? And this felt like it was very harassing, and she was concerned for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Clark. Was there anything else you had for me before I hear from the respondent?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Clark. And now I'd like to hear from the respondent, Ms. Burnside. You can proceed when you're ready.
Hi, Your Honor. I don't actually know where to start. I have apologized to her neighbors for my behavior. I did not, I've never met her. I had never spoken to her until she spoke to me on the Ring camera. She knows exactly why I know who she is, because my boyfriend is living in her house. We've been together for 4.5 years. She met him on a sex site and then moved him in with her daughters at her. He, at the times that I came to her house and honked the horn, I was supposed to be picking him up, and he had either fallen asleep or his phone died and didn't answer. When she said I went and knocked and rang the doorbell and then left, I knocked and I rang the doorbell because I was supposed to be picking him up. Or the day that I didn't know she was there, I thought we would hang out, because we do. And when no one answers the door, you leave. I've never spoken to her. I don't know what she looks like. I would never presume to speak to or say or anything to her children. In the paperwork, it says, she said something about, like I said, something about taking her children, and she alludes to it being like I was going to take her children. I stated that she was not operating in the best interest of her children as someone who works for DCYF, because the man she moved into her home that she met on a sex site is a active drug user in her home with her children there.
So your explanation makes a little bit of sense, but I don't understand why that would result in you driving around the neighborhood honking your horn in the middle of the night.
I was honking because I was trying to wake him up, because he was supposed to be coming with me. He had called me and said that he was bored and was tired of being stuck there. He had to save his gas to get to work the next day. And what was I doing? And I said, I'll come and get you. And he said, okay. He said, let me know when you're close and I'll hang it and I'll come out. I called, he didn't answer. I called several more times and he didn't answer. So then I honked my horn, because I didn't think about I really didn't think
And
about the
then
neighbors.
were you just trying to kill her roses out of some kind of revenge thing because she had your ex-boyfriend? I don't understand why you're pouring liquid onto her roses.
That wasn't me, Your Honor. I was never, the only time I've ever been to her door was to leave him his lunch that he had left in my car, to leave the barbecue, which was in the paperwork, that I had stayed with him where he was working down in Hoquiam, and we barbecued that night. He was finishing that job. His car was full of tools. He asked if I would bring the barbecue and drop it off at his house. That's what I did.
Okay, thank you. I understand. Did you have anything else for the court?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Sorry, it's hard to not talk over you when you're on the phone. Let me just ask again. Did you have anything else for the court?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I am going to enter a restraining order in this case. It's an anti-harassment order based on repeated acts of what could either be qualified as harassment or stalking. It actually qualifies as both. I'm going to find that the respondent has repeatedly come to Ms. Clark's home at all hours, uninvited, and has harassed Ms. Clark repeatedly, resulting in not just Ms. Clark being disturbed, but also the entire neighborhood being disturbed. There's tons of, excuse me, I shouldn't be so informal. There's plenty of evidence on the record supporting these allegations. And I find that Ms. Clark's testimony here today was credible. I find that Ms. Burnsides was doing this behavior because she believes her ex-boyfriend has been taken from her or for whatever reason, but she knowingly is doing this behavior in order to harass Ms. Clark. And I'm going to order, therefore, Ms. Burnsides, that you stay at least 1,000 feet away from Ms. Clark's residence and place of business. Stay away from her children. Do not engage in any of this type of behavior. If for some reason you do have a communication from your ex-boyfriend and he wants to meet with you, do so not within 1,000 feet of Ms. Clark's residence. Do so not within 1,000 feet of Ms. Clark. Do so not within 1,000 feet of Ms. Clark's children. This order will be effective. This order will be effective for 1 year. And if you violate this order, there are very serious legal repercussions that you could face. It is a crime to do so. Do you understand?
Yes, sir, I do. May I say something? One thing, please?
Go ahead.
As I stated, I was there to pick him up. That's the reason. Yes, one time I was talking to you, I was just trying to get him in trouble with her. But I still see him. We're still essentially together. He's just living there. He says he doesn't sleep with her. He has a separate room. He's just staying there. So I was never intending to essentially harass her. I was trying to get him to do as he had said. He invited me there to get him, to pick him up. So I had been invited there to pick him up. When he was in North Carolina, I understand. Overnight with him.
Let me interrupt you there. I understand your explanations, Ms. Burnside. I find Ms. Clark to be credible, however, and I don't find your reasoning to be credible. If you genuinely believe that your ex-boyfriend wants to see you, again, do so not anywhere near Ms. Clark or her children or her place of business. And if you do violate this protection order, then it's a crime, and there's very serious legal consequences. All right. So I'm going to enter an order to this effect now, and Ms. Clark, the clerk will arrange for you to get that electronically, I believe. And you should have that later today. If for some reason you don't receive a copy of this order, please let us know. And if the order is violated in any way, call 911 and show them a copy of this order and report the incident.
Okay, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Clark.
Your Honor. I'm sorry, Your Honor. May I ask you one more question?
I'm sorry, what's that?
May I just ask you one more question? May I ask why you thought I was incredible? Because I was honest with you.
I understand, but that's the way these things go in court sometimes. But you're excused now, and
yes, Your Honor.
Oh, there we are. Okay. So Ms. Wilhelm, it looks like your respondent, Christina Smith, has not been served yet. Is that right?
Yes, he is trying very hard to dodge service and not be served.
Okay. And how many times have you asked for a continuance so far?
I'm not sure at this point. I think this would be the third, I believe.
Okay, so I'm going to give you one more chance, another 2 weeks to go ahead and get service of process done. So I'll continue to order for 2 more weeks. But after that, the court's probably going to be inclined, I won't be the person hearing it most likely, but the court's probably going to be inclined to just dismiss it for lack of service at that point. So try your best to get a service processor to get service done in the next 2 weeks, and then just keep safe in the meantime.
Yeah, okay. I understand. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I don't see a proof of service. Ms. Piper, were you able to get?
What was the question, Your Honor?
Have you been able to legally serve these papers on the respondent in this manner?
Yes.
And did you file a proof of service with the court?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, apparently we've just received it, so thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Turney, did you receive service then?
Yes, that's the delivery of the paperwork, correct?
Okay, and when were you served with that paperwork, Ms. Turney?
The second?
You broke up a little bit. Can you say that again?
Sure, August 2nd.
Okay, August 2nd. So do you feel you've had sufficient time to prepare for a hearing on this matter today?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Then what we're going to do then is proceed with the hearing. I'm going to find that there has been proof of service and that there has been. Thank you. You've both been sworn in under oath. And so first I'd like to hear from the petitioner, Ms. Piper, if you could explain the reason for requesting a protection order for today.
Yes. The reason why I wanted to do the protection order, we've never had an issue with any neighbors of living here for 3 years. And ever since Tina moved in, things were okay and fine. There was no issues. I'm going to, for your time, I'm going to talk about the two major concerns that is involved with my daughter, Emily. On 4/16/2023, my daughter was outside playing. At the time I was here at the house. My daughter was playing alone, and she wasn't with any other friends. A few minutes went by. She came home, and instantly on her face, she looked like something happened, like something really, really bothered her. And as a mother, you know with your child's face whether or not something is wrong. And I went to ask her, what's wrong? What happened? And she was holding her neck, and she said that Drake touched her on the neck by gripping on it on the back of the neck. And I was asking her, is this true? What happened? I need to know all the details. And she said that her neck was hurting her and that he snuck up on her thinking it was funny to grab her by the neck. And she said that she was trying to get away from him. She told him that it wasn't funny. And I guess he thought that they were just playing, but clearly my daughter told him that this is not a play, and she rushed home. And so I wanted to get their side of the story. I wanted to make sure that it was true. So I walked over to Tina, which is my neighbor next door. And well, I asked them, it was her and Drake, and I believe his name's Tim, that was right there by the door. And in clear view, I saw all three of them, and I was like, so my daughter just told me that your son laid his hands on my daughter's neck. Is this true? And they were confused, obviously, and they were looking at Drake, and he smiled, and he verbally admitted that he did lay his hands on my daughter's neck, which is not okay. He's about twice the size and a couple years older than her, and she clearly did not think it was funny. And I told them that all I requested is for their son to stay away from my daughter, and they thought that they were just playing, that they were just kids, that they didn't take the situation lightly. And I told them that their son needed to stay away from my daughter, and I stressed to my daughter that you need to stay away from them. All I asked was for both sides to just be in peace, stay away. If there's no excuse to lay on anyone's hands. And Tina got really upset that I confronted, and she started yelling and cussing, and she slammed the door in my face. And I told her that I wanted to be clear that this is a serious issue. And she opened up the door to throw a hard camera at me, and I dodged it with my hand, and it hurt my hand. I ended up removing my situation, called 911 and the sheriff's department, and they told me that they were handling another situation, that it was going to be a while for them to come here. So it was about, I would have to say, 4 to 5 hours. It was a really long time by the time they finally got here. They got my side of the story. They got Tina's side of the story. And that was the major concern, was that part. And everything, I thought everything was fine up until the most recent of 7/26/2023. My daughter was again outside by the lake playing, and we have a lot of wild ducks, and there are maybe two ducks that are the neighbor's pets. However, she doesn't bother them because she knows that those are their pets, but there's tons of other wild ducks, and she loves animals. She would never hurt any animal. She wanted to go and pet a duck. And as I was watching her, and I was like telling her, okay, I need to go up to do dishes. As I was walking up to my RV, I saw Tina walking the opposite direction towards the lake. I didn't think nothing of it. I was just like, maybe she's checking the mail. She's just doing her own thing. And then about 35-ish minutes later, my daughter was shaking like this. I'm not exaggerating, Your Honor. She was shaking. She looked extremely fearful, crying. She was having a hard time saying what was happening. She told me that Tina was yelling, cussing, telling her how expensive all these ducks are. These are all my ducks. And my question is, Your Honor, with an adult yelling and screaming at a child for just being like, why would you? I'm just confused why you're targeting my daughter, why you think that was okay to just yell at her like that instead of like, why, like, walking, say, hey, these ducks are really important to me, you know, please don't do that, like in a more civil conversation instead of yelling and stuff. So there are several witnesses of neighbors that have heard and saw the incident happen, but they wish to remain anonymous, Your Honor. And I have never like approached them, like I've never approached.
Mrs. Piper, let me interrupt you there. Sorry. Do you know what she yelled to your child? Emily? Your daughter's name's Emily, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you know what she yelled at Emily?
She yelled at Emily to tell her to stay away from her ducks. But there was, when I was down there, Your Honor, there was like 20, 30 plus wild ducks. There's no tags, there's no collars, there's no indication that they're their ducks.
I understand. And can you tell me again, which date was the incident where she threw the camera at you and you had to block it with your hand? When was that?
4/16/2023.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you're alleging that on April 16th, there was an incident that ended with her throwing a camera at you and you had to block it. And you're alleging that on July 26, 2023, your child was out running around with the ducks, most of which are wild, and that your neighbor yelled at your daughter, frightened her very much, yelled at her to stay away from the ducks. So I understand those two incidents. Are there any other incidents that you wanted to
there were minor incidents. Yes, Your Honor. There were minor incidents, which this is kind of leads up to me quite like wondering of the other incidents were when they moved here. They were complaining about their small space, and that's just how it is. We're living in an RV in a space, you know, it is given. They started putting their stuff in our yard, and I've asked them kindly to please move them back, and they kept not listening to that. And I've let my landlord knows. They were also building a fence blocking my water supply and the power strip, and they were not supposed to do that. And I let the landlord know, and they had to like rearrange their fence. There were several incidents where they would park their car behind my car, so I wouldn't be able to get out if I needed to go anywhere. I have never parked behind their cars. And with that disrespect, they have done, those are minor things. They have had other incidents and with other neighbors, but that is nothing. But they have caused a lot more trouble. And
Okay,
so
I understand your allegations. Can you tell me how the behavior of your neighbor has made you feel?
very stressed out emotionally. She's obviously thinks this is funny. I don't. I just wanted, all I want with this is to be left alone, my family left alone. Do not yell at my daughter. Do not, just don't do anything to us. Like, and it's just, we've been done the same thing. We have tried to just ignore countless of things that she has screamed and yelled about and has done things. We've talked to the landlord multiple times, and as you saw with evidence, filed formal complaints. And it's obviously with the most recent date compared to the last incident, obviously they will continue to be, they would continue to, I would feel like they're going to continue to be a problem. And that's why I wanted to issue this anti-harassment order, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. I understand your request. Now I can hear from the respondent when you're ready.
I'm so sorry, Your Honor. I'm not smiling because I think it's funny. I'm actually smiling because I've never heard a bigger liar in my entire life. Let me begin by this incident. He works out. Started out as
I'm sorry, Ms. Turney, I couldn't hear anything you said. Your video and your audio broke up really badly. So let's just do like, you tell me a couple sentences and then I'll let you know if I heard you or not, so that you don't give a very long spiel and then find out that we didn't hear you. So if you could start over and just tell me about this first incident that happened. It sounds like your son was involved in an incident with Emily and then you allegedly threw a camera. Is that what happened?
Yes. My boyfriend works here. He got hired here. He was down at Drake at the time. Did not see. And
Ms. Turney, I'm sorry, I can't. Ms. Turney, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. Ms. Turney, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. I can't hear you. Your transmission is very garbled. Could you just wait, stand by for 1 minute, please? Try again. So I heard you say that, yes, there was an incident. Can you continue with that?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Barely. You're still breaking up quite a bit.
Would it be better to call?
It might work better if you want to try that. We can just for 3 or 4 minutes and see if you can call in. All right, that should be better now.
Okay. Yes, much better. There we go.
Okay, so you can proceed with your story.
I wanted to let you know that Tim, my husband, works here. He actually works for the RV park. We started out as tenants, and then he got a job here. But he was down at the lake during the time that she said that Drake had put his hands on her neck. Tim was watching him. Crystal was not watching Emily at all. In fact, she was left down there with us and nobody watching her. And Tim did not see any of this instance.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
So go ahead.
Let me stop you right there. I understand that there was something going on between the children. That's not really my concern because I can't put a restraining order against you for what Drake did or didn't do. But my concern is that you threw a camera at her.
That's not correct. That is not correct. And Tim was here witnessing. The injury that she's talking about on her hand was, this is why the cops did not arrest me, because if I had done something to hurt her, that would have happened because they came. But she pounded on my door so dang hard when I shut it in her face that she nearly busted out my window. Now, I opened up the door and I was going to throw something, but I didn't. I tossed in the dirt. She was long out my gate because I was thinking maybe I had to defend myself. She came in swearing at my child. I wasn't dressed. And when I shut the door in her face to get her to leave, she nearly broke my window out and then told the police that I injured her hand. No, she injured her hand beating the crap out of my door. And Tim was here. He witnessed the whole thing. But the other thing is, why did she wait 3 or 4 months to bring it up now because the whole thing with her daughter was nothing like she's saying. I just told her to please not harass the ducks. Someone stole my duck on the 4th of July, and I just would prefer for her to not, she's not nice to him, okay? So I just wanted her to stay away from him. But I was at the top of the hill. She was down at the boat ramp, way down at the bottom. So this was all blown out of proportion. But the main objective here is that they have called the police on us 4 times without relevance, sir. And nobody has ever supervised this little girl when she's out by the lake. So we put in a complaint on the 27th. She went and filed this restraining order on the 28th. We put in a complaint with our RV park that her daughter was unsupervised.
So
she retaliated by getting a restraining order.
Is it fair of Ms. Piper to say, though, that you yelled at her daughter?
No. I mean, if all I said is, oh, I'll tell you exactly what I said. All I said was, whoa, you can't harass the ducks like that. You were already told by Tim yesterday that you can't do that. You can't be running them back in the water. I've got a plate full of food for them, and I'm going to feed them. And she just said, I'm going to tell my mom. So I said, okay, well, you could do that. But that's all that happened. There was no swearing. I never came nowhere near her. There is no other people in the park that have complained on us. Nobody. And since Emily's been supervised, we've had no other issues.
Okay. Well, a few things for you, Ms. Attorney. Number one is there's no statute, there's no law saying you can't talk to another person's children, especially if they're out unsupervised, messing with your property or maybe messing with your property. You're allowed to talk to children, but it's a really sensitive issue for a parent to have someone discipline or even speak to their children. So you got to be really careful with that. It can be misinterpreted. And children can definitely misinterpret when it's coming from someone they don't know. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And then, all right, I understand then. I think I'm getting a picture of what's going on. Also, there's no law saying children can't be out playing unsupervised, right? They're allowed to go around chasing wild ducks all they want. It's childhood. So not something that you can really complain about or yell at a kid about, okay?
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah, I totally understand.
Okay. Ms. Piper, you say that she threw a camera at you. What kind of camera was this?
It was a security camera. They said that they were going to have it installed outside, and I did not pound their windows because I cannot reach their windows. We live in an RV, and I did pound the door for her to open up because I was trying to talk to her about the incident, and she lied about the window pounding. And I let the officers know that threw the camera at me. At the end of getting my side of the story and her side of the story, Your Honor, they told me that if there was another future incident or issue of them of any sort, to file an anti-harassment. That was their advice, to try to keep the peace.
Yep, I understand what the officers were coming from, and I understand where you're coming from. So I'm going to enter some findings now. I've heard from both of you. I'm going to find that there's not sufficient evidence at this time to justify an anti-harassment order. It has very serious legal ramifications, and therefore it has very specific requirements. And while these neighbors are obviously not getting along and people are not conducting themselves the way they should be, that doesn't mean that there's a basis for an anti-harassment order. When it comes to the camera, I can't really say one way or another who did what, but I think by a preponderance of the evidence, I would believe Ms. Piper that there was some kind of incident with the camera. I can't find, however, that there was a course of conduct that constitutes harassment that would justify entering in an order at this time. I totally understand the feelings of having a neighbor talk to your children when they're out playing, and that makes you uncomfortable, and the children may be interpreting it one way when the adult trying to correct their behavior means it a totally different way. My advice here is for you two to just leave each other alone as much as possible. Tell your daughter to avoid her, whenever she's out playing. If she gets approached by her, to just leave and come home, that kind of thing.
That's all I want, Your Honor.
If there's future incidents and future behavior, Ms. Piper, you can file a new request for a new order. But I'm not, you should review the statute and go familiarize yourself with what kind of behaviors are required in order to justify one. I'm just not seeing that here today. But I thank you all for your patience for hanging in there through a very long calendar. I'll enter an order denying the request at this time, and you're all free to go.
Thank you, Your Honor.